always wonder why we're not higher rated in chess. Why am I 1600 when this person is 2000? Why am I 1100 when this person is 1800? We're always comparing, we're always asking ourselves, what do they do that I do not, and how do I get to that level? Well, today, everybody, I welcome you to a new series that I'm starting, which is called What's the Move, where I'm going to be having people from different levels at chess play the exact same position. So we're going to be having 3 matches, and in those 3 matches, everybody is going to be playing the same position. Now, the first match is going to consist of 2 players that are 800 rated. The second match is going to consist of 2 players that are around 1300 rated. And the third match is going to consist of players that are around 1900 rated. I hope that you guys enjoy this new series, and let's go ahead and jump into the position that players are going to be playing from. So here we have the position. Now this is a position that just arises from the opening, but we can see that there's already some characteristics, such as the fact that, the king is on e2, white's pieces are more, developed. White has a bit more center, whereas black's a little bit more, less developed. It has more, queenside space. We're going to start by having 2 800 players play this position out. Like I said, this is a more balanced position than what we had before. It is black to move right now, and we got 2 800s playing this. I know that Ahmed is 803, so he's a little bit over 800, but still. Okay, there we go. So the first move that we're seeing here right now is b5 played by black. I think that we all see what black is trying to do, but just in case they're stream sniping, I am not going to say anything. But now that white stopped it, I can't say it. Black was trying to go c4 to trap the bishop, which is why white decides to go c4 and, goes ahead and stops the pawn push from black of c4. Awesome. Yours on YouTube will not like 800. Okay, if you're watching this on YouTube, I'm sorry. I'm bad at maths. Okay, there we go. Now everyone is happy. I am not lying anymore. Okay, all right. Okay, there we go. There we go. Wait, we did it, guys. We did it. Under 804. Okay, guys, let's see what they've been doing. So let's see what the last few moves have been. So h6, b3, knight is coming up, and now a3, kicking away the knight. So let's see where the knight comes back. We can see that black has a few scattered pawns. I mean, these pawns are a little bit weak, I would say, but not necessarily that weak. But I don't know, I kind of like this for white. The bishop is now going back to add some pressure on these pawns that are starting to get a little bit weak. So a4. I think that's a good move, because if white is able to exchange this pawn for this one and open up, or if black, is able to do that and open up for the rook file, then I think that black is going to get some counterplay. Black is also going to be fighting against one, very weak pawn. So both white and black are going to do that, but I would claim that this pawn is weaker than this one. So I actually kind of like this for black now. So there we go. So now the rook is going back to defend the pawn. But now we can see that, white just blundered a bishop. White cared more about the pawn than about the bishop. Now, the question here is if a move like bishop b5 would have been possible. Because after rook takes a4, this does look like a really strong move, to be honest. So I think this is possible. Probably bishop a6 saved it, though. So probably this wasn't winning anything due to bishop a6, now that I'm thinking. But anything would have been better than blundering the bishop. So yeah, so this is definitely now an issue for white. White out of mistake blunder that. And yeah, now bishop d7 has been played. And okay, oh guys, this is yeah, we're seeing a game between 2 800 players, or 7 and 800. We're not saying anything. Ooh, a pawn for black. A pawn for black. A pawn for black. Okay, white saw it. Okay, the bishop has been hanging here for a lot of moves. I was hard holding it in, okay? I was trying to hold it in just because, in case they're listening, I didn't want, me saying it to be the reason why they took the bishop. But there we go. Now white finally took the bishop, so black counter gambited their bishop. There was a counter blunder here. Yeah, there was a counter gambit. So you should say bad moves to trick them, but I don't want to trick them. I want them to play their best chess. Okay, now we see a pawn that's been hanging. A lot A lot of pawns and pieces have been hanging here actually in this game. This started out as a, very, chill endgame, but it ended up being something completely else, which is kind of what happens when you put two 800s playing an endgame, playing a solid position without queens. This is the best kind of chess. This is so exciting. So we can see now white saw that the knight was hanging. There was this pin, so white went down with the king to defend the knight. Now you can see that black is taking another pawn. Black is in this moment of time 1 pawn up, but black also has really active pieces. I really like the pieces that black have. But white also blunders a rook, and once again I didn't want to say anything, but that is a rook, everybody, that white blunders. And the question is, will black counter gambit the rook or not? Will black counter gambit the rook? Will they do that or will they not, everybody? Okay, white is attacking the knight. I didn't see the bishop either. The bishop was sneaky here in g5. The bishop was a sneaky one. The bishop was a very sneaky one. Okay, the knight goes back. Knight goes to c6. The knight is defended. Black is a full rook up right now. Does white have any chances here? You know what Gotham Chess says? As long as there is a knight, you should never resign. Let's see. Now, white is trying to go exactly for that, for the tricky moves, but black does not give anything anymore. No, black has had enough of giving pieces, and now when the knight is attacking the rook and the knight, black just goes for a knight exchange. Black picks up the pawns, and this is soon to be GG, everybody. Very GG. Yeah, there's not much more that white can do unless black blunders a rook, which I don't think they will do. This is just going to be, completely, over. I would probably have gone king here just to attack the rook, just because it feels like the rook could almost have gotten trapped over here. I mean, not exactly trapped, but it feels like we could have trapped it a little bit. Now the rook can escape. I would have gone rook over there at least. King g2. So yeah, black is about 100 points higher rated. That is very true. That is very, very true. Yeah, okay. Bishop goes back. Now black needs to win the game though, Black is up a minute. Black is up in position. But black needs to know how to win this game. So let's see if black is able to win the game, everybody. Okay, king g2. The king is going back. Attacking the rook. All right, let's see how long it takes for this to be a win. And now, everybody, they see it. Black sees this. Black sees this. Rook b3, very nice move, pinning the bishop, and now there's no way of saving the bishop. And just like that, the Asmo decides to resign because they will not have any pieces left apart from some pawns that will just be, traveling and trying to get to the other side but be stopped. So there we go, everybody. That was the game between the 800 players. I mean, this was an interesting game. I think that the main issue in this game was not the fact that they didn't have any good plans. I feel like both players kind of understood the plans of weakening each other's pawns and stuff, but the issue was the tactics in this game for sure. We can see that in this game, both players missed some tactics. They blundered pieces. For instance, rook a1 just blunders his bishop, but black pretty much immediately counter blundered by going bishop d7. So bishop d7 was a counter blunder, which we see that both players missed for several moves. For many moves, they were just caring about the pawns and they didn't really care about this bishop. So I think that this game was mostly decided by tactics more than anything else. So I guess that at the end, the reason why black won was because black was a bit better at tactics in this game than white, but it didn't really have anything to do with the starting position. So that is pretty interesting. Here we have the very same position. Okay, cool. Good luck. I will turn off stream. Yes, please don't stream snipe if you're playing. All right, so we see that black is playing the exact same move. I feel like b5 is a good move. So, oh wait, let me just wait a second. Under 1350. Okay, so there we go. It feels like b5 is a good move. So it makes sense that, the players are playing this. But now we can see a little bit of a different idea. White is very quickly trying to bring the rooks into the middle of the board to get this square for the king to fake castle, because the king, according to white, does not want to be up here in the center, and this rook wants to be able to protect this pawn in the future. So instead of keeping the rook on h1, white now at this level decided to move around the pieces so that the king would be on f1 instead. So we can see that black got quite a lot of space on the king side, but the king side is now pretty closed. So let's see now how this changes. We can see that in the previous game, you know, both players were playing a lot on the queen side, whereas in this game, it feels like it's more, you know, a battle of the center. So it's a little bit different from the previous game. So rook d8, all right, just trying to get an open file. This does look like a pretty equal position. White is just trying to reroute their knight. This is also something that I feel like we don't really see in lower levels. Rerouting the knight is always a really important thing to do in chess because, you know, rerouting a bishop, like you can do that, but like that's probably just gonna take like a couple moves because of how the bishops move. They move diagonally. But rerouting knights always takes a little bit longer because you can only like get to a certain, like it's going to take a certain time to reach a certain square. And for knights, it's really important to be at a good square because if they're at a bad one, then they're like literally going to be useless. So this is something that I definitely think that we don't see as much in lower levels. So I think it's interesting too that we see this right now, this reroutement of the knight. I think the knight is trying to go to d6. I think that white said, you know what? I want to put the knight over here on d6. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to find the path for my knight to get over there, and this is something that I feel like we miss a bit in lower levels. Yeah, so they're rerouting to this d6 square because this is an ultra, you know, protected square by the bishop, by the rook, by everything. And now after pawn takes or rook takes, whatever they want to do, you know, this pawn is going to become a pretty big pawn. Now the thing is this, these pawns, it's easy to overextend them. So if, you know, if white kind of messes up, this pawn could actually become a problem in white's position because this could actually be an overextended pawn. Yeah, so it's important for white to not lose this pawn because if white loses this pawn, then it's going to get bad. So bishop over here. Yeah, the idea of going here is just to still defend the pawn. So we see now f5. Black is doing everything to push f4, trap the bishop, and stop the bishop from defending the pawn on d6. So we will see now what white does to stop that from happening. I love coffee. I actually kind of like bishop c1 or bishop e3 before to go and defend on this diagonal instead of this one. Which is, I think, a pretty difficult idea to see, but I kind of prefer defending from this diagonal. So now we see that this is just, this is, they started by going f3 just so that the pawn would not be, the pawn or the bishop would not be trapped, but now black unfortunately blundered a pawn. They blundered the pawn on e6, so bishop f2, rook d7. We're seeing now, I think that that's a thing, like the higher the level, you know, the more you think about rerouting your pieces. How do you reroute your bishop? How does your bishop go from being in a bad square to being in the absolute best square possible? How do different pieces do that? So anyways, bishop check here. Wow, we see some intermediate moves. Look at that. Look at this rook check intermediate. So here, I guess that white is just sort of saying, you know, I'm going to be exchanging the pieces. This pawn is really strong and it's going to be hard for you to defend, especially with the two rooks being this active. Now, it's not just that. It's also that white is attacking a lot of pawns at the same time. This pawn is under attack. This pawn is under attack. A lot of pawns are under attack right now. So white has just literally put like the rooks in just magnificent squares because all of black's pawns are under attack. This pawn is incredibly strong, and very soon I think that black's position is just gonna collapse. So yeah, we're gonna be analyzing later. So bishop f5 just attacking the rook. I thought that maybe rook takes h6 would be played, but bishop f5 just threatening the rook, so the rook goes back. This has been a really nice game by white. So now they took on h6. You know, they can soon be starting to, they're threatening these sort of checks. Maybe they'll take this. There's a million threats right now, and this is an incredibly hard position for black to defend because of all of the checks and threats that there are right now at this moment in time. Rook g8. Okay, so what the idea of rook g8 is that if rook h7 check, black wants to go rook g7 and block this check. So that is why we are seeing this move right now. But yeah, the issue with this move though is of course that there is this fork. So, you know, I'm trying to explain what I think the ideas of the players are, but you know, some of these ideas don't always work. But this is actually a nice idea, you know. King g7, this is actually a really nice idea. King g7, bishop g8. I didn't see this actually. That was really nice. And then they take here. So this is a nice defensive plan by Abby, you know, attacking the rook at the same time to at least not lose an exchange. So that was a really nice idea. This pawn is still a very weak pawn, you know, it might be lost as well. So yeah, now we see a position where black is 3 pawns down, and yeah, black will probably, I think that white is going to try to now do something about the pawn, like push it and maybe, you know, try to bring the rook to the other side. I think this is what white might do, or they might just start pushing the other pawn, which they can do too. They have 2 pass pawns together. You know, what is the only thing that's better than 1 pass pawn? 2 pass pawns, okay? So this is pretty amazing. But white needs to be careful to not blunder all of the pawns. I guess it'll be now just 1 pass pawn, because this move actually just goes ahead and loses the pawn. I think this might have been a blunder, but I mean, it's still super winning with being, you know, looking like this. This is still super winning. If this was a different colored bishop endgame, it could have been a little bit, you know, a bit different, because then at least it'll be like that imbalance in the position that white can, you know, both players can always defend their pawns with the color of their bishop. Now, because it's the same colored bishop, it's not really the same thing. But this still requires a little bit of calculation right now. So yeah. This does require a bit of calculation, because we're going to get into a position where, you know, white is going to get this pawn, black is going to get this one, and it's all about the pawn that is faster. Now, I'm pretty sure that black has calculated to see that, you know, that white has calculated to see that this is winning, but this requires calculation, and for some reason it feels like white is starting to calculate now. If white does one move wrong, you know, this could change the outcome of the game. So this is probably not a square I would go to, because when white promotes, they're going to promote with check. I would probably have gone to a different square. Oh yeah, now this queen is just going to defend this, so, you know, this is just going to be, they can just start pushing with everything else. Aren't they queening at the same time? Like I said, I would probably have gone somewhere else with the king. Yeah. And there we go. And now they're starting, and in this position, Amsu wins, Abby decides to resign. So this is interesting. We can see here that, you know, white won in the previous game, black won. Now we can see that white won in this game. They started with the exact same position. But we can already see some differences. You know, black played in both games, you know, the 800 and the 1300. They played b5, which makes a lot of sense, but this game was a lot more focused on piece play and on, you know, keeping the center and, you know, on like rerouting pieces. It was definitely a lot more focused on piece play than what the 800 game was. The 800 game was more focused on trying to like break pawn chains, open up, you know, win pieces. You know, it was a lot more focused on those sort of things, whereas this was more focused on how can I put my pieces in the best square possible. So now we will do under 2,000. Okay, here we go, everybody. Yay! It is starting. Awesome. So we're seeing now a different first move by Adri. He went knight c6 the first move, and then we saw b5 and h4. So we're seeing kind of similar positions to what we had before. We're seeing a little bit. Let's see. Oh, look at that, guys. We're seeing h4 and g4 going, guys. Look at that. Look at how aggressively white is playing right now. White is playing really aggressively at this moment in time. That is kind of crazy. That is kind of crazy. I love h4 and g4 here. I like it too. I think it's cool. It's very different from all the other ideas that we've seen. Like, you know, all these 3 games have been so different. You know, one has been about blunders. The one has been about like pieces hanging. Another one has been about like rerouting pieces. This one has just been about attacking. This is so aggressive. This is so cool. Okay, so now I guess that black needs to start thinking about how to defend, because there are some scary things going on right now. I mean, bishop check, blah, blah, blah. Lots of things happening right now. This is very scary indeed. So, I mean, there are a lot of things that, you know, could happen now. I mean, there is a checkmate to look out for. Bishop e4, there is a checkmate to look out for. It's good that this bishop is defended, because otherwise, you know, that would be catastrophic, because the bishop cannot take the bishop because there's a rook checkmate over here in the previous move. So this is crazy. This is being a really fun game. Okay, let's continue. Let's see what they do. All right, let's see how white continues. I mean, now white needs to like take a bit of a decision, because I told them to not repeat. And then they blundered. A bishop. I told him to not repeat, and then white blundered a bishop. Oh no. Oh no. Okay. Oh. Wait, now I don't feel bad anymore. Wait, what is happening? Wow. Wow. Wait a second. I think Adri missed this move, bishop e3. This is... Wow, this is unstoppable. f5 was a big mistake. f5 was a big blunder by black, yeah. f5 was a huge blunder. Oh, wow, this is crazy. Yeah, they were hoping that king takes what happens, that there would be bishop check. But now there is no check. Now there is nothing. And now black resigns. That is crazy. What a game, guys. This is a really exciting game, though. So in the beginning, they both played so well. I mean, h4 is actually a great move over here. Let me put the eval on so you guys can see. Both of these players were playing top, you know, top NG moves for like so long. I think here it would have been important to start exchanging pieces for black, because we can see that right now, like what is happening is that white is sort of creating an attack, a kingside attack over here. So the threats are, you know, bishop h7 check. I think that rook takes d1 is a pretty important move here, because after rook takes d1, I mean, if white takes with this rook, well, then the rook is not really like threatening here anymore. You can bring your second rook in. If they take with the bishop, same thing. They just wasted a move going bishop c2. And if they go king takes, well, then you can go rook d8 check, and you know, you can bring your rook in. So this is a really nice idea, this bishop h7 check, king f8, and bishop e4, because now black cannot take on e4, because then there's rook h8 checkmate. So what now white is threatening a checkmate. So black needs to defend the checkmate by like going back. So white blundered the bishop, a one move blunder, and now white was lost. I mean, white needs to go bishop takes, knight takes, and then maybe you can start rerouting again, just like we did in the other game. So rook h3 was a one move blunder, and then rook h1, and now they're threatening checkmate. And now what is really interesting is that black played f5, but this loses due to g6. The move here is f6, because after f6, g6 is not possible, because then the bishop is able to take the pawn on g6. So by going f5, black is blocking the bishop from this square, which means that white can go g6 without any consequences. So that is why f6 is the move. And f6 would have been winning for black probably, because black is just a piece up and there's nothing here. There's no checkmate, whereas f5, you know, just going one more step with the pawn just loses the whole game, which is kind of crazy. One step with the pawn changes the whole game. I think that's kind of crazy, and that is kind of like how chess is a lot of times.